What we're doing at this meeting is to update the large randomized controlled trial CHHip. CHHip is a study which compares the conventional radiotherapy treatment given over 7.5 to 8 weeks with a shorter schedule given over 4 weeks. And we can do this by increasing the dose per day. So instead of giving 2 Gray fractions of radiotherapy each day, we give 3 Gray fractions. It's probably the largest study that's ever been performed in localized prostate cancer as a treatment trial. We randomized over 3,200 patients. Over 71 centers participated. So it was a huge, huge team effort. This effort was funded by Cancer Research UK and the Department of Health and sponsored by the Institute of Cancer Research and run by the Clinical Trials and Statistics Unit at the Institute. So the 8-year results have shown that we can confirm what we reported 3 years ago with the 5-year results, that the 60 Gray 4-week schedule is what we call non-inferior to 74 Gray, which was the standard dose given over 7.5 weeks. The non-inferiority is certainly confirmed. In fact, the 60 Gray is marginally better. It's about 3% better in control rate, about 84% now compared to 81%. The study had 3 groups. It had 2 experimental groups, and there was a 60 Gray group and also a 57 Gray group, which was treated in 19 treatments. Now that group is interesting. It performed a little bit less well than the 60 Gray because it was a lower dose. That would be expected. But actually we showed that in patients over 75 years of age, that it actually was a little bit better, it seemed, than the 74 Gray. Now that's important because that schedule, the 57 Gray schedule, has less side effects because it gives a lower dose. So we think that is particularly suitable and an option for patients over the age of 75 years who actually have more problems with side effects. Now, it's all very well having a very effective and convenient shorter treatment, but actually if it caused more side effects, then actually this wouldn't be a good deal at all. But happily, using the advanced radiotherapy techniques that we've developed as part of the trial, what we call intensity modulated radiotherapy, the side effect profile is very low. And in fact, if you go out to 5 years and use what we call clinician reported outcomes, the side effects affecting either bowel or bladder are at a level of 2% or less for modest or greater side effects. And this is actually about half the rate of side effects that we saw in our previous national trial. So we regard that as a great success. And when you turn to the important patient-reported outcomes, we find that for bowel this runs at about 6% and for bladder at about 8%. But for those outcomes, it's clear that the 57 Gray schedule just has a little bit of an advantage over the 60 Gray. So we've concluded that we've confirmed that the 60 Gray schedule is effective and safe, and it is now the recommended standard of care by NHS England in the UK, where it's mandated that centres should use the 4-week schedule. But NHS England have also taken on board the favourable results in the more elderly population with the 57 Gray and say that this should be considered as an option. And that was one of the messages I wanted to get out internationally, that actually this was a good and a safe option. It's important, particularly with elderly patients, that we don't cause unnecessary distress. Now, looking at disease control is one thing. That doesn't necessarily affect how a patient feels. The things that really matter to a patient longer term are, do they develop metastases? Now that's a good news story because so far in the study, out at now it's 9-year average follow-up, only 5% of patients have developed metastatic disease. Highly satisfactory, and it's the same between the 3 groups. How many patients have died? Well, it's 13% that have died. Now, you obviously just noticed that 13% is higher than 5%. And that's because, in fact, the considerable majority of patients who don't die of prostate cancer at all. And I'm estimating that probably the ratio between a cancer death and a non-prostate cancer death is probably about 1 in 6 or 1 in 8. So that's, again, why I stress that it's very important that we minimize side effects as far as possible. Now, although we followed this group of patients up for a long time, we must carry on doing it. And we must also continue to do the various parts of translational research that we've embedded into the trial. This is important because we've looked at the biophysics of the doses we've given, and we've defined new ways of actually describing how we should give the dose to make it safer. And these new dose constraints have recently been published, and we hope that those are going to have an international impact as well, making treatment even safer. Most particularly, we've defined some dose constraints which may, really for the first time, show how we can improve erectile dysfunction. We've been quite good at reducing bowel side effects, but erectile dysfunction we haven't really concentrated on before. And for the first time, I think we may be getting some mileage there, particularly if we use the more precise image-guided radiotherapy, which we've also studied as part of the trial. We've also done a lot of biomarker work, and we're continuing with that to see if we can stratify patients according to an expected outcome, looking to see in the radiogenomics consortium that we work with whether we can identify patients who are going to be particularly sensitive to radiation or not. And we've also combined these various aspects in a big data project, trying to bring it all together in one go. So although we followed these patients for a very long time, and although actually we're very pleased with the outcomes we've seen, and we've changed both national and international standards of care, we've still got a lot of work to do.